All right, let's get started. Good morning, and welcome and congratulations to the final workshop and arriving at the final stage of the workshop phase. So as you all have experienced, we've been through a series of problem solving and digital skills workshops. And today is when we kind of bring all these concepts we've learned together, working in your teams to get you equipped and ready to start ideating and prototyping your solutions. And I'm very happy to welcome Ting from Kickstarters, who will be leading us through the workshop. Kickstarter is also one of the implementing partners for the program, and will be supporting you all through the solution building phase. Ting, over to you.
Okay, very good morning, everybody, and thank you for typing in the chat. So I know that everyone is calling from different parts of mainly Southeast Asia. From Malaysia, from Brunei, Myanmar, Cambodia. So good morning, everybody. And I know some of you probably have attended the previous workshop. So before we kickstart on today's entrepreneurial solution, in terms of solution building workshop, I just thought of getting you all to kind of recall, what you have learned in the previous workshop, which I believe it left with a little bit of questions for you to think about, which was what are some of the key challenges, what are some of the approach and potential impact that you want your solutions to have, and what are some ideas that you have in terms of solution building. So before we start the sessions proper, so later on, just an overview of how the format of this entire workshop would be. So it will be a bit more interactive. So I will not talk so much. I will only give you an overall concept, but I will want you to get into your own groups, which we will explain how the breakout rooms will work later on. But later on, as we go through the different concepts, we will give you enough time to actually break into your own breakout rooms, and then you will work on the activity, and then we will come back and we will discuss and share. So at any one point, if you have any question, you can raise out your hand in the chat, and then we will able to help you or to facilitate whatever questions that you might have. So you will also have your facilitators in the breakout room later on, and they were able to facilitate your activities. So without further ado, I will begin our last session. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay? If yes, you can just give a thumbs up in the chat so we know that we are all good. Okay. So welcome everybody. So you're officially entering into the solution building workshop. Okay, so now what we want you to do is to do a very quick ideation sprint. Now, so what do I mean by this ideation sprint is that, okay, sorry. Yeah. So I will want you to basically right now individually, because I know that all of you might have maybe you have 2 or 3 of your teammates together on this call, but right now this is an individual activity. So I want you to just start to write down what are some of the ideas that you have, or rather the solutions that you want to build for the particular theme that you have selected. So we have different themes that we have shared. So for example, if your theme that you have chosen is agriculture, so right now I want you to write down as many ideas as you can. What are some of the potential ideas or solutions that you will want to solve? So right now you have about, later on we will give you about 5 minutes, and then you can just share it individually. And then we will explain to you why we do this ideation sprint, right? So, okay. So what you're going to do is that we want you to basically think outside the box. So which means give just an example. So if you have chosen the topic, the theme on agriculture, we want you to think as creatively as you can, right? Imagine that you have all the resources and you have all the tools that is available. what kind of solutions would you want to build? Or what are some of the problems that you want to solve? And we will encourage you to use certain ideation techniques, for example, mind mapping, or you can do some of the brainstorming sessions. So these are some of the ideation techniques that you will explore later on as we progress throughout the workshop. But right now, I just thought of having everyone to do a very quick ideation sprint so that you can generate as many ideas as you can. Okay, so right now, we maybe will give everyone about 5 minutes, and you can write down as many solutions as you want, or any problems that you want to solve. And once you have written that up, once you're done written that, please do not dispose that sheet of paper, because we will need that later on as we do the design thinking phase. So can we will set a timer for about 5 minutes. So while everybody is doing working on that, I encourage you to just think of what is something that has come immediately to your mind. So don't kind of overthink it. Just kind of write down all of the answers or all the ideas or the problems that you think it's something that is related to your theme, your chosen theme, or something that you want to solve. You can write down as many as you can. Okay. Well then, so can I just check, does anyone have nothing written yet? Anyone? Or everyone have something that they have written down? Okay, very good. I see someone has actually posted on the chat as well. Yeah, so as we go through, feel free to just type in, what you have written down in the chat as well. So some of our participants can also read through what you have written, and then we can learn from each other. Okay, so is everybody still seeing my screen?
No, could you screen share again, please?
Okay. Okay, so right now we will want to, so the reason why we want to introduce the quick ideation sprint activity is because we want you to basically brainstorm, right? Brainstorm as quickly as you can without any sort of limitation or constraint. And right now, what we're about to do is to introduce the design thinking concepts to you. And later on, we will do another round of brainstorming exercise. And this time around, with the design thinking techniques, we want you to also experience, how your thinking process actually change, right? So for design thinking process, any one of you already know what is design thinking. You can just kind of reply or raise out your hand using the raise hand button. But design thinking, essentially, it's a human-centered approach to innovation that we want to emphasize on empathy, creativity, and experimentation, right? So the objective here that we want to introduce the design of design thinking is we really want to create a solution that meets the user's needs and effectively. So the reason why we do design thinking as well is that at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to design a solution that the user will want, right? We don't want to design a solution that we think is perfect solution, but it actually doesn't meet the user's needs. So the stages of design thinking are actually categorized, or rather, there are 5 steps to that. So the first step is empathize, right? Second step is define. The third step is ideate, prototype, and test. So I'll run through very quickly what does empathize means. So at this stage 1, I call it the empathize stage. We want to understand what is your user's needs, emotions, and challenges. And how you do it is through your research and your observation. So for example, if you want to design a solution for, let's say, the farmers, right? In the rural farmers. So we want to understand what is their actual need and what are some of the emotions that they are going through. Are they frustrated? Are they upset? Or there are certain things that's affecting their livelihood. So all these are the all these belongs to stage one, which we call empathize stage. So this is the stage where you want to gather as many data as you can, right? So how you do it is could be through interviews, could be talking to the users to understand their pain point. The second stage is define. So at this stage is where the problem or need is based on the insights that you gathered at the empathy stage. So for example, once you have talked to the users who is suffering from the problem, who has a pain point, now you start to define a problem that they are facing, right? So the problem they're facing is probably because lack of access to a certain resources. So this is where you start to define the problem. And once you define that, the next problem is ideation, which you can call ideate stage. So at this stage is where you will generate as many ideas as you can that will help you to solve the particular problem that the local farmers face, for example. So once you have the idea, what do you do next? You will do a very simple prototype, right? And this prototype, it's a tangible representation of your ideas for you to explore and to test your solution. And then lastly, the final stage is to test. So one key thing in this whole design thinking process that we will want to emphasize is that this design thinking process, you can look at it almost like an experiment, right? So you empathize, you define, you create a problem statement, and you create a prototype to test your problem. But at the end of the day, your prototype may not be the final solution, may not be the final version of your solution. So you will need to continue to iterate by gathering feedback from the users. Okay. So the key principles of design thinking, like I briefly mentioned earlier, it should be human-centered, right? So what do I mean by human-centered? So it should be focusing on how it helps to resolve the user's pain point, right? How does it help to address the user's needs? And collaborative. So what do I mean by collaborative is that it should encourage the perspective as well as participation from the different parts that are involved. And also it is a collaborative approach because as you're working in your team, everyone should actually contribute to this design thinking process. So how can you do this is that for example, the goal of this design thinking stage in the collaborative field is to leverage the skills, expertise, and experiences of everyone who is involved to come up with the most innovative solution. And iterative. So what do I mean by iterative is, like I mentioned earlier, the design thinking solution, the design thinking process, once you have created your prototype, it should be something that you can test, and it should be something that you can iterate along the way. So which means the final version doesn't have to be super pretty or super fancy, but most importantly, it needs to allow you to test whether this prototype works and allow room for changes. Okay. So how design thinking actually leads to effective user-centric solution, right? You might be asking, why do I need to do design thinking solutions? If maybe I already know what are the solutions that I want. Why can't I just jump into creating that solutions? So there is a reason why we want to introduce the concept of design thinking, because we want to design an effective solutions, right? That focus on the user's needs. And the reason why, as you can see from here, it focuses on the real needs, right? What is the actual needs that is faced by the user? And it encourages innovation. If you have an idea now, that's great. But as you practice this design thinking process, it will allow you to have more ideas, and it also allows you to gather more data from your users, right? And that will then help you to refine your solution or refine the final product. And it also helps to improve the user experience. Okay, so stage one, the one that the few slides ago earlier we mentioned about empathize. So that is stage one. So the goal at this stage is to really deeply understand your user experiences and their needs. And how can you do that? It could be through interviews with the users. It could be simply through observing how are their daily activities, or we could do what we call like empathy maps, which we will introduce later on. And the outcome is we really want to gather insights of their pain points or their desire. So your task later, you will need to create an empathy map. And the empathy map is basically for you to visualize your users' thoughts. You know, what are they thinking and how are they feeling and what are their actual needs? And it will also help you, we also need you to create a user persona creation. So this user persona is actually to help you to understand what kind of users are they, and which we will require to research a little bit more. For example, what is their background, what is the demographics, and what sort of day-to-day challenges that they might face. So these are the activities that we will need you to work on during the breakout sessions later on, which we will explain a little bit more in detail. So now I'll just start off very quickly just to share with you what is an empathy map and why do we need to do an empathy map. So this is how an empathy map looks like, right? So as you can see, it has different boxes, different category. So this essentially is a visualization technique that help you to understand what is really in the mind of your users, right? So for example, what do they see? And what do they typically say and do? How do they think and feel about a certain problem? And what do they usually what are some of the potential pain points that they are facing on a day-to-day basis? So as you map out and as you answer these questions, you will start to realize that you actually gather a lot more detailed data about your users, and that will then able to help you to craft a problem statement that is more concise. So one thing I want everyone to take note is that in order for us to form a problem statement, we need to be as specific as possible. So we rather have a specific, simple problem statement rather than a very broad and generic problem statement, because that will help us in terms of in the solution building phase. Because if you have a very generic problem statement, you will find that it's very difficult for you to generate solutions to solve that particular problem. Okay, so how do you create an empathy map, right? So earlier we talked about the empathy map. We will gather the data, right? With the data, it will help you to identify the key insights. And with the key insights, you can now fill out the map, and then there is where you get a brief idea on what are some of the common. So for example, the empathy map, how you can do it is, for example, you can talk to maybe about 10, 20, as many as you can, right? And after you talk to them, you can start to write down what are some of the common theme or common answers that they have actually revert back to you. And from there's where you can kind of gather the generic sense of what are some of the common issues, common pain point that this group of users are facing. Okay, so this is something that I have actually covered earlier on introduction of the user persona. So user persona, so for example, user persona, again, why do we need to create a user persona? Because we need to humanize the data, right? So for example, I use the example of local farmers. So there are, for example, 10 local farmers, but these 10 local farmers might have a very different day-to-day activities. So by using this user persona, it will help you to really imagine how is your potential users is like, what is their behavior. And having this user persona would then help you to create a solution that will meet their specific challenges and needs. So these are some of the examples of the user persona. So some of the main theme that we have actually crafted out, which all these will be given to you in the form of worksheets. You can fill it up. So a name and a background of the user, whatever problem that you are solving, who are the user? Demographics, what are their age range? And why is it important to find out demographics? Because maybe you are deriving or you are creating a solution for a user that is 20 to 30 years old. Or maybe you are creating a solution for the user that are 50 to 60 years old. And you will start to realize that the solutions that you implement for two different age groups will be very different. So this is the importance of, understanding a little bit more about your user persona. And also understand what are their goals and needs, what are their frustration, what are some of the challenges, and codes. So what are some of the common things that you have, hear from the users based on your interview, based on your observation with them? Is there a common theme or common issues, common problem that they have surfaced during your interaction or during your observation? Right? Okay, so then stage 2, it's on defining your problem. So the goal at this stage is to clearly define the problem or the opportunity based on the user's insight. So how do you do that is through problem statements and as well as your user persona. And the outcome, what do we want to create? What kind of problem statement do we want to create? We want to create a problem statement that is focused and it's actionable. So these two things is important for you to take note. Focus, which means concise, as well as actionable. So, and that is the reason why earlier when I explained about defining your problem statement, it should not be generic, it should be very focused, and it should be actionable. So your task later on during the breakout as well is to create a problem statement as well. So we call it problem framing, right? So what you would do is, for example, I want you to imagine you going through the empathy map, going through the empathy stage. And then now I want you to use the information that you have written down to do a problem statement. Okay? So problems framing, what is it? Is really to articulate the problem to address the user's needs, right? And this is to clarify the problem, and it's always focusing on the user needs. So what are some of the examples of good problem statement? I briefly covered all this. So user focus, who is the user who is experiencing this problem? Is it the people who are aged 20 to 30? Is it the user who are aged 40 to 50? And what are some of the specific need or challenges? And how does this problem impact the user based on the insights that you have gathered? So some of the steps to formulate a problem statement would be, number 1, review the insights that you have gathered through the interaction with the potential users. And then define who are the actual users, identify who the problem will affect. So for example, these pollution issues that is happening in the rural area is affecting which group of users, right? And then the next thing, you identify the need, right? Clearly articulate what the users needs or struggle with. So in other way, this is called the pain point or the challenges that they are facing. And then you articulate the problem. So the problem here means you formulate a problem statement. So it should be a combination of, the problem statement should have a combination of who are the users, what are their needs, and what are some of the insights that you have gathered. So these are some of the examples that I thought of just quickly run through with you. So for example, this is on reducing plastic waste in ocean. So the user could be the coastal communities and marine life. And what are some of the problems that they are facing? The problem they're facing is that the plastic waste in oceans is harming the marine life and threatening the biodiversity, right? Which in turn affect the fisheries and the tourism. And what are some of the needs? The need is that the coastal communities need effective and affordable ways to prevent plastic waste from reaching the ocean. So what are some of the pain points? Is that many communities lack the proper waste management infrastructure and awareness program to handle and reduce plastic waste. So your problem statement could be, how might we create a scalable solution that reduces plastic waste entering the oceans, protecting the marine life and supporting sustainable livelihood in coastal communities, right? So this is an example of how you can craft your problem statement. So later on, we will also focus a little bit more on how can you use how might we statement, right? But before that, I thought I'd just giving you another example. So this is an example of improving energy efficiency in urban homes, which I think some of you have indicated in the chat that this might be the topic that very similar to what you have chosen. So the users are urban homeowners and renters, right? The problem that they face is that urban homes consume a high level of energy, leading to increased greenhouse gas emission. So what are some of the needs? Is that the residents need accessible, affordable ways to improve energy efficiency in their homes. And so what are some of the pain points? The pain point is that many homes lack energy efficient appliances or insulation, and residents may not have knowledge about the low-cost, eco-friendly upgrades. So the problem statement here could be, how might we provide affordable solutions to help urban residents improve their home's energy efficiency, reducing both their cost and environmental impact? Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to do is you are going to break out into your own groups. And what you are going to do is to create an empathy map and also create a user persona and create a problem statement. But is everybody back?
Yes.
Okay. Well done. So I hope everyone has managed to work on at least the empathy map. So I understand that the time that we have set aside for the breakout room may not be enough for all of the teams to actually go through the empathy map user persona, but you have a sense of what it is. And there is a link that was posted earlier where you can download all the worksheets, and that worksheet is there to help you and to guide you as you work through the your solution building in the subsequent weeks to come. So and one thing that I just want to encourage every one of us is that I know that some of the teams have already come in with a solution in mind, right? And so you may decide to skip this empathy mapping stage or even the ideation, the problem framing stage. But what I would encourage you is to still look through the worksheets and try to fill up as much as you can, because as you work through, as you dive in a little bit more details, that is where sometimes you will discover new insights. And so this is one thing when it comes to problem solving, or rather when it comes to solution building. I always like to say this, don't fall in love with your idea too quick, because then you will always find out new insights, new ideas that you can always refine your solution. So if you have the time, I strongly encourage everyone to go through that worksheets, the practice as a group, and see what are some of the new things that you will discover as a group. Okay, so well done, everybody. So now that we are back, let's go on to stage 3, which is on ideation. So I think this is pretty straightforward. Ideation means we want to generate as many ideas as we can. So the goal here is to really brainstorm a variety of ideas and solutions. So again, like I mentioned earlier, you might have already solutions that you want to implement, right? But it doesn't it will still help you, as you go through that process, you kind of just think a little bit wider, think a little bit more creative, and you might realize that there are new perspectives to that. And also discuss and talk to your teammates. So later during the breakout rooms, that would be a great chance for you to start communicating with your team members and hear what they have to say and hear what are their ideas. So coming back today, so what are some of the methods that you can do for the ideation stage? What are some of the methods? Would be the simple one would be, for example, brainstorming or do a mind mapping, right? And what are the outcomes that we want to have or want to achieve at this ideation stage is that we want to have a set of solutions to explore, right? You remember just now I mentioned don't fall in love with our ideas too quick, because it's always good to have a wide range of solutions, and then you kind of streamline into the solutions that would work best for the specific needs of your user. So later on, again, at the next breakout session, what we would like you to do is to do a brainstorming sessions. So there are various brainstorming techniques, but for the sake of this workshop, because we only have limited time, we want to focus on using how might we questions to help you to generate ideas. Okay, and once you generate the ideas, so for example, you could have generate maybe about 5 ideas. We want you to select just one. And how you're going to go through that selection process is as a group, you can discuss, you can vote, and come to a agreement on which solution or which idea is the best. And then you worked on your prototype based on that idea. So like I mentioned earlier, so there are various techniques on ideation. There are mind mapping, there are brainwriting. So brainwriting basically is how you can each individually generate an idea and then just add on as a group. Mind mapping, I believe a lot of you are familiar with mind mapping. And so today we want to focus on using how might we question. So in the earlier example, you've seen that the example that in the problem statement example that I have shared all started with how might we as a question, right? So what does it do is it helps you to reframe a challenge into opportunities for ideation. So here is some tip on how to generate how might we question. So I take on this very generic example. So if you look at this example, it says that Sally, an IT employee, needs a way to quickly enter time for her projects on the go because she wants to spend maximum time on her main job responsibilities. So your problem statement could be, how might we enable Sally to easily time log for project? How might we improve time logging for Sally to reduce time spent on it? How might we rethink logging as an issue? Right. So if you look at this equation on top, you will start to see that you'll start out with how might we, and you have a power verb. Now, what do I mean by power verb? If you look at the examples below, enable, improve, enhance, rethink, right? Or reduces. All these are power verb. And target audience. Who is your target audience for this problem statement? And what are the benefits, right? So these are some of the G's that could help you to formulate your own how might we problem statement. Okay. Okay. And then next, once you have formulate your once you have your ideations and your problem statement form, what we then want you to do is to create a prototype. Now, earlier I mentioned at the start of the session, prototype is not meant to be the final version. So as much as we want it to be aesthetically pleasing, visually we know how it functions, but we don't want it to be perfect. We don't need it to be the perfect. So I will encourage everyone not to spend too much time on perfecting your prototype. The main idea is your prototype should be good enough to showcase what are the feasibility and what are the functionality of that prototype. And it still should allow you room for improvement. Okay, so the goal here is to develop the working model, right? To test the concept, functionalities, and as well as user interactions. And how you can do that is you could do it from using sketches, wireframe, of mockups, right? So again, for the sake of today's workshop and with the time constraint that we have, later on during the exercise, we will encourage you to we will just do a paper prototype. So paper prototype means that we will just use you can just take pen and paper to just draw on it. And the outcome is we want to have a tangible representation of ideas for testing and feedback. Okay, so feedback is a very important part in the prototype. So later on, your task is to create simple prototypes using sketching. Not the digital tool portion, you can do it as you worked on your solution in the coming weeks. But for the sake of today's workshop, we will only focus on sketching. Okay, so now what do I mean by paper prototype, right? So this is an example of, let's say your solution is to create a mobile app or a web page. So I want you to draw it out, like what are some of the, so for example, if it's a website, if it's a mobile app, when I launch the app, what would I see? When I click onto this, what would I see? And what are these functions? If we are tracking energy efficiency, how can this app help to track? So I want you to be as detailed as you can and explain explicitly like what does this function does and how does it benefit the user. So in your case, if you are creating, let's say it's a completely new equipment, machineries, right? It's a product that you're creating. I want you to draw the product and draw as detailed as you can and showcase how would this product solve the particular need of your user. Okay. Okay. So again, what are some of the key criteria for the prototype, right? So one is the clarity of the concept. So now the second part is on functionality. How functionable it is for this particular product that you have designed or services that you have designed. And the next thing is on usability. How would a user use in this case? Then how can you demonstrate? How can the user use and how can you test the usability? And next, it's on feasibility. What are some of the practical and technical possibilities of the solution? And aesthetic appeal. So on this part, I would say that we want to make it aesthetically pleasing, but we don't have to make it in a super fanciful way. Okay, so keep it neat. And for iterative nature is again, prototype is built to be refined, right? So we want you to really improve on building and gathering feedback. So someone asked a question earlier. So do we get to, is all the exercise that we're doing here for the sake of just sharing among our teams, or we will be sharing together as a whole group later on? So to answer to the questions, yes. So later on, we will have about, I think, 15 minutes where we'll get some of the groups to share. And I will strongly encourage everyone to, make this a practice for you, and we are all here to learn. So later on, we'll set aside some time for you to practice, how you can showcase, present your ideas, present your prototype, and showcase. And you will receive the feedback from every one of us. And this is a learning experience because then you get a feedback and you will be able to develop or iterate your prototype quicker. Okay. Now, and then the next step is, which is the last stage of the design thinking, is to test. So the goal here is to gather feedback and to refine your prototype. And some of the methods that you can use is user testing, which means you send your prototype to the user and get them to test and get their feedback. Or you can do a feedback session. So for example, later on, if we have the time to get some of the teams to share, you will get the feedback from all the participants here. So that is a feedback sessions. And the outcome that we're looking at is that we want to gather insights for improving the solutions and validating the effectiveness. So this is the main goal of the last stage of the design thinking process. So later on, you will work on the ideation, the prototype. And once you are done with that, we will come back to the main room. And then that is where you will do a prototype. Basically you get to present what is your idea and what is your prototype. You can present it, and you will get a feedback through everyone in this group. Right? So right now, again, we're going to break you into your own groups. And what we want you to do is we want you to generate your how might we questions. And we also want you to select one idea that you agreed as a team. Then we want you to create a simple, just a paper sketch prototype. And then we'll come back to the main room for feedback collection. Is that okay? And anyone need me to go back to any particular slides before we break you into your individual groups? Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I thought you all have a very great discussion. Thank you, facilitators, for facilitating. I hope facilitators are enjoying the session as well.
Certainly. Certainly.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, so now we have come to our mini testing stage. Why I call it mini is because we only have about 15 minutes. So I would first like to offer it to any groups that would like to volunteer themselves, right? And like I said, this is actually a practicing ground for you. So it's a very good opportunity for you to practice what you have gathered so far. What are your ideas? What are some of the problem and solution that you have proposed? And you can showcase it to every one of us here. And we are here to learn from each other. So we will provide you with the feedback or maybe some of the questions that will make you think a little bit deeper on how you should refine your prototype, or what are some of the perspectives that you can look into this problem. So now I would like to reserve the time for any groups who would like to volunteer to share your ideas or present your prototype. Anyone who would like to volunteer?
Come on, guys. Lot of interesting stuff.
Perhaps facilitators would like to make recommendations.
I can't control myself to share the idea. It's not appropriate for me to share, otherwise I would have shared.
Yes. Do you have any?
You don't get this opportunity often, where you get so many people from different parts of the world gathering onto one platform to hear your ideas. So really strongly encourage any team. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just showcase, tell us. Oh, okay, very good. We have a volunteer. Dan, is that how I pronounce your name? Okay, over to you.
Yeah, you can call me Dan. It's fine. It's short for Daniel. Yes, so just in a nutshell, our team thought of making a community-based solution against fighting food waste. The main idea is to help people grow food plots like in an urban area, ideally, and share resources like compost via compost hub. Again, this is a community-based thing, and sharing ideas online like how to grow food, solve wilting issues, and make people actually care about where their food comes from, and like how much food waste is produced by society in general, like restaurants and things. We think that there's a lot of food waste that gets needlessly wasted after things like events, weddings, etc. or maybe supermarkets just throw them out because they think it's not ideal deal to display them. So that's something we'd like to combat. Another thing we talk about a lot is like how people just casually think, oh, if their food is cheap, for example, it's easy to just throw it away. That's something we'd like to fight against. Yeah, so we'd like to help people come up with a community solution against that. Um, I now, if we get this idea off the ground, we'd like to turn this into a game, which is inspired like by geocaching or maybe Pokemon Go, something like that, where people find clues, search around the map for food plots, and help people take care of them. Yeah, and help get compost to where people grow food. Yeah. So I think that's it for me. Um,
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing that.
Yeah.
Before I ask facilitators, any questions that you will like to ask?
Hi. Yes, Daniel, good effort. I think
Hi.
it's on the right direction. Let's move.
Thanks.
Let's move forward.
I cannot see who's speaking. Oh no.
It's me, it's Chris.
Hello, Chris. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I will jump in very quickly to just say that I like your idea, and I think it's really a problem that we are facing in today's world and society. But just
Yep.
one question. So who would be the specific users that you're targeting? Because you mentioned about you want to create ultimate solution that you're looking at is to create a game, right? Gamify
Yep.
the experience. So if I were to zoom in a little bit deeper, who would be the ultimate users?
Right. Yeah, glad you asked that because I think we missed that from Breakout Room 1. We didn't share this, but our target users are like we sort of divide it into people. There's people who don't quite care enough to do anything about food waste, so yeah, people who don't normally think about it. Or I guess people who are apathetic, we can say. The second are people who are aware of the issue, but cannot, but then they think, oh, I'm alone. I can't just do this by myself, So we're going to create a community that addresses that. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great effort. So just one kind of like tip from me, or maybe that's
Yep.
sort of something that you can think a little bit deeper as you go along in the next few weeks, is that you mentioned about, like people, right? People who do not quite care about the cause or were not aware of the issues. So maybe you want to really define who are these people, right? Are they like
Yes. About that, they're young children. So we actually want to use this app to help educate younger people, especially like teens, adolescents, and maybe primary school kids about, appreciating where their food comes from. So this behavior change starts early. This part was actually inspired by my time teaching in Japan when I was there, because they actually teach kids to grow food in kindergartens there. So it's an idea I wanted to kind of spread around. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Now I
Yep.
have a lot more context to this solution, and I think it's
Yep.
very exciting.
Thank you. Yep.
Yep, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, I think we have already we have next team.
I think Hasif has been volunteered, potentially.
Hasif, are you there? Hi. If Yasi might not be in front of the of the screen. So okay, so can I get maybe one more team to share your idea, or one representative from the team? Anyone? Hasif, are you back?
Or perhaps Sai, who has shared his idea in the chat, would like to explain a bit more about it.
Okay, so maybe for the benefit of everyone, I'll just read out what Cyan has mentioned in the chat. So Cyan mentioned that they plan to work on food waste mapping, and additionally, they aim to collect data on food waste and consumption patterns and sell these data to brands. For example, if a society frequently you
Hi, this is Shan.
Yeah.
I'm here. Yeah. So I just recently shared my idea with my team member. I mean, uh, Daniel. That last week I worked with an international organization named the called the IC. So IC mainly works on ocean pollution mapping. So I think we have to work on food waste, the same, and also we can sell our data to the brands, and also we work with the brands. So yeah, I think these ideas are cool. Just need a need a support and need a grant for this idea actually. Yeah.
Hey, well done. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Cyan. I hope I got your name right, Cyan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cyan. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the problem that you both of the teams have chosen, it's really a real world challenge, and I look forward to seeing, what are the solutions that y'all will come up with in this solution building phase. So thank you very much, everyone. Is there any teams who is like dying to share your ideas? Then maybe we'll allow one more team to share. If not, we will continue with our sessions.
Hello.
Anyone? Oh, hi. Oh,
Hi, my name
Hasif.
is Hasif. Yeah. So we come out with an idea, which is an application. So for example, I have a question. So let's assume today is Monday. So do you know how much carbon footprint did you contribute on your way to your work today? So many of us don't know. So actually, in Google Maps, they are tracking our location. So let's say when I'm going to work, I'm walking for 5 kilometers, and then I'm driving for 2 kilometers, going here and there. And then the apps can track all this mode of transportation, um, and in the end, will give a summary of how much carbon footprint emitted daily, for example. So by that, with that information, the AI will suggest based on the location on how we can improve our commuting. In a way, we can reduce the carbon footprint. So that's our idea. So it's an app. We just install it in a phone. We just extract
Tracking of
the
one carbon footprint first on a personal commute side of it. They are trying to do a carbon tracking of one carbon footprint on a commute side of personal commute side of it. if you are using a public transport, how much you are using. They believe they should be able to get the data from a Google Maps and which kind of an EV vehicle are you using or which vehicle you are using, it kind of.
Yeah, correct. Did you get the idea?
I think, are you speaking? Are you on mute?
Can't hear anything.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the idea, Asif. So I think just one quick question as you were describing, what are some of the solutions that you are providing, and as well as the problem that the users could potentially be facing. So based on what I hear earlier, I hear a lot on the solutions on the application, not so
Yeah.
much on the problem. So what is really the pain point of the users? So maybe this is the part where you can dive deep a little bit. Like you're creating these solutions, is it because there is a certain pain point that's already experiencing by the users? Or is
Yeah.
this to have app?
For me, I think that the user, maybe everybody, almost everybody have the intention to make the world better, in such a way that they can contribute less emission, but they don't know how, and they are not aware of how the action have implication. So in a way that if they can travel in a more efficient way with less carbon emission, so they know they can make a change and make them feel better and maybe spread awareness among everybody.
Okay, so again, my very quick tip is that when you're saying that users who are using public transportation, there could be a lot of people who are using public transportation. So which specific age group are you looking at? So this might be something that you want to consider. Maybe you want to kind of like define who is your ultimate user. Are they, like, for example, working adults, or are they young children who are taking public transportation to school? Who are your target users? And then you can create a solution that would match. So for example, if you're targeting at children, your solution then may not really match what they are facing.
Yeah.
So maybe in terms of
Understood.
users, you can define it a little bit more.
All right.
Yeah.
We will look more into that. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hasif, for sharing. Okay, so now we will head back to our main sessions. Okay, thank you everybody for participating. So now the next thing that we're going to touch on very quickly is on some of the interview tips. So earlier we mentioned that the first stage on empathy stage, to empathize, basically how you could do it is through interview. And even during your testing, what you would like to do is also to interview, right? Interview to collect data, interview to collect feedback, right? So how should you do an interview, right? So first of all, we would like you to understand that, what problem are you trying to solve and for whom? So from the earlier quick exercise, so there's one thing that we all should take note is that we can have a fantastic solution, but at the end of the day, we want to ask ourselves, what is the problem they are solving and for who? And make a list of questions or certain topics that you will like to understand from your users, and create maybe 1 to 2 open questions about each of these topics, and identify the most important questions for each of these topics. So the whole idea of interview is not to create a 20 questions kind of list. We want to make it concise, and you get your users to actually answer to your most pressing questions. Okay. So interviews it must be a conversation, right? So earlier what I have shown you is just a guide. So don't limit yourself to that. And be aware of time, because as you speak to your user, not a lot of people will give you an hour of their time to this interview. So make sure that you prepare your questions, make it concise, and be aware of the time. Ask the most important question first, right? And pay attention to what they are saying, because you are trying to gather information, you are trying to find out, insights from them. So listen to what they have to say. Try not to interrupt as they were sharing, right? So never correct your interviewee, right? Even if you think that, you disagree with what they said, just listen to their point of view, because that is really important. Try to speak as little as possible. When I said that means try not to include your own judgment when you are conducting the interview. And practice active listening and allow some time for them to sort out their thoughts or what they want to say. Okay, so these are some of the very quick interview tips. It will be helpful for you at the when you're gathering data at the stage 1, as well as it will be helpful for you at the stage where you're trying to gather feedback from your users. Okay, so next we will cover a little bit on the Lean methodology. So any one of you here have heard about Lean methodology? You can raise up your hand in the chat if you have heard of Lean methodology or you know what it is. Okay, so I will go into very quickly on what is, Lean methodology. So basically, Lean methodology is a systematic approach to improving efficiency and reducing waste in the process. And where does it originate from? So Toyota production is actually based on this Lean methodology method. And what it does is that Lean methodology creates more value with fewer resources by streamlining the processes, improving the quality, and reducing the cost. So these are the few areas of the key principles of Lean methodology. One is on value. So it has to create value, for your entire value chain. And it has to flow, which means you cut away all the steps have to flow. So when you are creating your design thinking process, I want you to start thinking of what are some of the processes that will involve as you are creating this solution. And you will want to minimize whatever that is not necessary, because remember, at the end of the day, prototype should be something that is simple, and it should not be something that is you spend like 2 months building on it, and then end up you will have to change it all over again. So one idea of building a prototype as well is that we want it's not for perfection. So as you can see over here under perfection, it is not for perfection. So we want you to also allow your room to iterate, to collect feedback, and to improve on it. Okay. And what are the types of waste in Lean methodology, according to Lean methodology? One, it's overproduction. So commonly what we see in the manufacturing scene or manufacturing industry is that they stock up inventory, right? So that is a type of waste because they overproduce and they stock up as inventory. So that is one thing that we want to avoid while we are creating our solution based on Lean methodology. And waiting, right? What is the ideal time? Right, so that is also something that we want to always think of. What is the lead time, right? So for example, when you're creating your prototype, what is the best way to demonstrate your prototype? Would it be through a sketch? So again, all these sketches, we will strongly encourage you to use any free version if you have. If you need to use things like Miro, or other type of apps, we will encourage you to use the free version first. Okay, now transport. What are some of the unnecessary movement of the product of the materials? So in the event that your solution involve transportation, right? We want you to cut down try to think what are the ways to minimize in terms of the movement. The next one is extra processing, right? So what are some of the additional steps that don't add value? So this one, we will need you to kind of look into each of your process as a whole, and you eliminate what are some of the things that doesn't add value in the process. So in the case of your prototype, you can even eliminate whatever features, whatever function that doesn't add value. So we want you to only focus on the function or the feature that will add value to your end user. Okay, and the next one is on inventory. So like I mentioned on the first part on the overproduction, we don't want any excess materials or production. Motion, very similar to extra processing. What are some of the unnecessary movement of people or equipment in this lean design process? And defects. So as you are creating your solution, you also want to take note on the defects because you want to reduce any error or rework that is needed due to mistakes, whereas you are creating your actual solution at the end. Okay, so in the same link, you will also have your lean canvas worksheet. So how it looks like, it is, okay, so this is, it may look a little bit different on your actual worksheet, but this is how a lean model canvas will look like. So we want you to identify, who are the key partners, what are the key activities, key resources, value proposition, your customer relationship. So basically, who are your potential customer? And channels, meaning, so if you are providing, for example, some of you have mentioned if it's a game app, or some of you have maybe come up with a website, right? Where are the channels that your solution will be on, right? And who are the customer segment? So this customer segment would be, who is the target audience that you are, or target users that you are focusing on, right? And in terms of cost and revenue, how much would it cost for you to develop this, for example, this solution? And what are the potential revenue stream that you are looking at? So as I would say, for the sake of our workshop, I would say maybe we would not have to focus so much on the cost structure and the revenue stream, but focus on the top part, because these will help you to design your solution based on lean methodology. So keep it lean, keep it very focused. Know what is your value proposition, right? What is the value that you have for your end user? Okay, so now we're gonna give you about 20 minutes. So right now it's 1:06. We'll give you until 1:30. So everyone, again, you will break into your own groups. So I understand that some of the groups might be still working on your previous activity. So if you are still working on a previous activity, you may continue to do so in this current breakout group. And this lean canvas is a guide. It serves as a guide for you to really streamline your process, but you may not need to complete everything. Okay, you can do this at your own time, when you are available, and do it as a group. So for now, I would encourage you to take a look at this, and if you need to complete whatever activities that you have not completed in the previous breakout session, you may do so. Okay, so everyone, we have until about 1. Welcome back, everybody. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat. If not, we will continue with the last section of today's workshop. And thank you, everyone, for staying with us since 10:30 in the morning. I know it has been long, but I hope everyone at least get some practical tips and get to hands-on a little on what you are about to work on in the subsequent weeks. So today you kind of get a teaser of how it feels like. So next, we'll move on to the last section, which is called crafting your pitch, craft your pitch. So I'm going to go through some of the structure and tips on how you're going to do this section. And because the pitch submission, everyone will be doing a pitch submission in January 2025. So right now, we will go through with you some of the few items, right? So how to craft your pitch. Number one, you need to create a hook, right? So now, what is a hook? A hook means something that will attract people's attention. So what are some of the ways that you can create a hook? I'm going to give you a little bit of examples. So it could be, for example, you can start off with a bold statement. Now, a bold statement will be something like, did you know that, for example, 85% of the world population is going to face whatever problem, right? This is a hook, a bold statement. Or you can ask a provocative question. So for example, what if imagine in 5 years time, what if all of us will have no food source? Example, again, this is asking a provocative question to get your audience listen to you, capture their attention and get them start thinking, right? Or to create a hook, you can also tell a short and relatable story, right? That you could relate to or the audience could relate to. You can also paint a future vision to create the hook for your audience. So for example, imagine in 20 years time, right? Every one of us would be living in a space with no shortage of food, no shortage of water or whatever. So that could be a way to capture the attention as well by painting a future vision. And the last way that you can create a hook is to highlight the urgent need or pain point. So for example, earlier we asked you a lot about what are the pain point and what is the challenges that your users are facing. So you can amplify that and create a hook for your audience. Okay, so next, after you create a hook, what you want to do next is to define what is the problem that you are solving, right? So this is the reason why in earlier sessions, creating a problem, a refined and concise problem statement is very, very important because it will help you to not only refine your solution, but it will also help you to refine your pitch, right? So you then, after you have talked about the problem, then you want to introduce what is your solution. And next, it's what is so good about your solution, right? So some of you, earlier I have given the feedback on, so if this is the solution that you're providing for this particular user, what is so good about your solution? What is so special about the way that you design this solution? What is your unique value proposition? And here is the one way that I want all of us to think about. Imagine this. Imagine today you have a competitor, right? They are solving the same problem as you, right? And this is something that we have seen earlier during our practice sessions. We have seen that maybe we could potentially have multiple groups that are solving the same problem. So the question that I want to ask you is, what is so unique about your solution? Right? What is your unique value proposition? So this is something that you want to maybe spend a little bit time thinking about and discussing with your teams. And to end off a pitch, you will always want to have a call to action. So what is a call to action? What do you want your audience to do? If you're crafting this pitch to the investor, what are you asking for the investor? Are you asking for their investment? Or are you simply asking them to sponsor you certain amount of money or sponsoring maybe just in terms of a venue, right? What is the call to action that you are asking? If it is a campaign, for example, that some of you have mentioned as well, what is the call to action for your users? Do you want them to join your campaign, join your mission, or what is it? So your call to action has to be very clear so that when people listen to your pitch, they know what to do and they can take action immediately. Okay. And I will cover in the next slide on some of the tips for the delivery. Okay. So since we'll be doing a lot on the virtual for the first round of the pitch presentation, so I thought of going through a few virtual presentation tips with you, right? So number one is always maintaining eye contact through the camera, right? So I know that a lot of us might have our scripts that we have prepared, but one thing that I just want to maybe share with you all is that try not to read off from the script, but always remember the key points. Practice it so that as you talk, you can maintain eye contact with your audience, right? And second is using your body language and voice modulation. So you want to make sure that your body language, it's inviting, right? So you are not sitting like, like this, or just showing that you are impatient as you are pitching your pitch. And voice modulation. So I would strongly suggest that we will just want to check a little bit on our tech, which is under one of the tip as well, managing the tech. Make sure that the lighting, sound, internet connection is stable before you start your pitching, before recording your pitching sessions, right? And voice modulation means that, if there are certain things that you want to emphasize on, create the curiosity or excitement, you need to sound enthusiastic, right? You need to sound like you're really excited. It can't be like, oh, today I'm really excited to share this with you, to present this idea. So as an audience, or rather from someone who is listening to the pitch, they don't ride along with you with your excitement. So voice modulation is something that you will want to keep practicing, as you are preparing for your pitch. And also keep your visuals simple but impactful. So if you have a slide that you want to present, don't cram everything onto that slide. So I would say keep it as minimal as possible so that visually when people look at the slide, they will know what to focus on. Instead of you just have a lot of words on it and people don't know if they should focus the time reading all the words or listening to what you are about to say. So keep the visual simple but impactful. If there are certain statistics that you want to show, I would suggest that maybe you can display in maybe using a chart, using a graphic, or maybe infographic. Okay. And next is the storytelling techniques. So I always say that building your pitch is like building your story. So it's almost like a mini storytelling opportunity. So there are three things. You want to talk about your problem, you want to talk about solution, and then you want to talk about impact. And that is why it's called a problem, solution, impact. Okay, so now how do you do that? So first, we would like you to introduce the problem. Okay, so I indicated here climate problem, but it might be, in your case, it might be different. Maybe it's on a agricultural problem. Maybe it's on a marine life problem. Okay, so I want you to make it relatable and urgent, right? So earlier I mentioned about creating a hook, and one of the hook can be you can ask a provocative question. You can start with a bold statement. So how do you make it relatable and urgent? So example is you can ask questions to your audience like, have you ever imagined ... You kind of create that hook to capture the attention. Or in 30 years time, our planet would be ... And then that is also one way that you can make it relatable and urgent. And next is you present, after you have done the opening, you introduce the problem, then you present your solution, right? So explain how it works and why is it better than current alternative, right? So if the solution that you're providing, it somewhat already exists in the market right now, I want you to really explain how your idea is more innovative and why is it better. So this is also the part where you might want to integrate a lot of your value proposition. Why are you so special? Why are you better than your competitor? Okay. And then the next part is I want you to then show the positive impact. What is the impact and the tangible results that your solution can bring? Like, for example, how would it benefit the environment? How does it benefit the communities? Or how does it benefit, the next generation? So I want you to indicate and show that in your storytelling as well. So be as specific as you can. And the last part is to inspire participation, which is what I mentioned in the earlier slide, your call to action, right? So you want to end with, always end with a compelling call to action. You want to invite your audience to support your solution. Okay, whatever your pitch is targeting towards, you want to end off with a call to action that you can invite your audience to say that, okay, I'm on board with this idea. What can I do next? Do I sign up? Do I join your channel? Like, what is it that you want your audience to do? Include that in your call to action. Okay. And so that comes with our last part on almost the end of our workshop for today. So this is actually the craft your pitch exercise. So we understand that some of the teams right now today, you do not have the whole team that's present here, and some of you are at the stage where you are at. I know every team is a little bit different. So what I would suggest is that we will have subsequent pitch coaching sessions in the coming weeks we will do an announcement in the coming weeks. So you can sign up for the pitch coaching sessions. So meanwhile, with all that you have learned today, we hope that you can implement that and start practicing every phase that we have taught you, and then craft your pitch, right? And book the pitch coaching session so that you can start practicing your pitch with the mentor. Okay, and with that comes to the end of today's workshop. Yokin, you want to take over?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for your perseverance through today. We know it's a longer workshop than usual, and we appreciate the energy that you brought to it. I think we have a couple of questions in the chat if you want to address those.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Do we need to present financial projections and IRR? Okay. So I would say that at this stage, this is not our focus. The focus of this solution building phase is really how feasible and how functionable is your idea. So I would say that we can leave that financial projections out for now. If you want to include it, feel free, but it's not the key criteria. And it's also not the key criteria in the evaluation as well. So can our pitch be for a non-profit initiative rather than a business idea? Yes, definitely. What is the evaluation criteria of the pitch? Yoping, can I just check? Will we be sending out the evaluation criteria to them?
Yes, the evaluation criteria has been put in the participant guide already on, I can't remember the page, but yes, it's there.
Yeah. So yeah. So thank you for all the questions. And I will say this, which is, I think the core idea of this entire pitching session is to really encourage everyone to come out to derive a solution to solve the problem that you have identified as a team, right? Or rather the specific theme that you have chosen. So in terms of how scalable is the idea or how financially viable is the idea, that will not be part of our evaluation criteria. how investors can invest if we are not revenue making. Yeah, so right now we are talking about this pitching session is solely to prepare you for the pitch submission in January, right? So if you like to take on to the next level, which is to pitch to the actual investors, then that would be a separate session.
Yeah, so to add on to what Siti mentioned, yes, in this program, you are not pitching to investors, you are pitching to a panel of judges who are not assessing whether you're investable or not. If you would like for your solution to be something that will pitch to investors for, that is something for your team to discuss and maybe prepare for outside of this program.
Any more questions? Is the pitch on January 2nd?
Right, yeah. So maybe you clarify for everyone, your pitch submission on due on the 10th of January will be a recorded video, which you'll submit. There will be a team of evaluators who will evaluate the recording and your deck. And the top 10 shortlisted teams will be invited to do a live pitch at the end of January. So, sitting or not wrong, the recorded pitch should be 3 minutes.
Yes, that's right.
Not exceeding 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's just for the practice of, for today's workshop, we have actually indicated just 2 minutes, but the actual pitch, recorded pitch submission is 3 minutes. Yeah, did we answer all the question? Do we have to choose a particular market to pitch our solution in? So I think this one would, to answer to that question, I think this one would mean that you have to be very, sorry, for clarity, I mean a particular country or city. No. So, but we will strongly encourage you to be as specific as you can. So for example, if there is a specific solution that you're building for a specific region or city, you can even mention it in your pitch.
Yeah. So maybe just to add, and mentors feel free to chime in as well. Part of the criteria looks at feasibility and sustainability, right? So having a clear idea of who your market is definitely helps us definitely demonstrates that you have a sense of who exactly you're targeting and why. And that also demonstrates feasibility.
Yeah, and on the sustainability portion, what we are looking at is that how sustainable is your solution? And is your solution something that can work for 1 month and 2 months, or is something that can work for the long term? So that is that sustainability portion that we are looking at.
And adding to that, because I like to talk, sustainability doesn't mean something that's just financially sustainable. It has to be a revenue generating venture. Right? You can also create a volunteer-driven initiative that can still be sustainable. Many organizations are volunteer-driven as well. Yeah, so feasibility doesn't mean for profit.
Pooja has a question. Do every team member should be there in the pitch video, or one can present the project? We would strongly encourage the team to be involved in the pitching phase. So if possible, I think that is highly encouraged.
Yes, and we're going again go back to the evaluation criteria. There's a component, actually you can paste them down.
Leon mentioned, oh, I thought each teammate is assigned a role. Yes, every teammate is assigned a role during the solution building phase. So for example, if someone is in charge of the pitch, when we say each teammate is assigned as a role, means you are like the leader of that particular role. It does not mean that you alone have to do the entire thing on your own. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And these roles are also suggestions. You don't necessarily have to follow them, right? Ultimately, it's up to your team to figure out how best to leverage your strengths and resources to come up with the best possible outcome that you're aiming for. Yeah. So, I mean, and going back to the criteria, you know, there's criteria there around teamwork and collaboration, as well as presentation and persuasion. So in terms of thinking of who should be involved in the pitch, we also think about how including or not including different team members can help to showcase and meet some of these criteria.
We have one more question. Can we ask people to download the app as a call to action, even if it's not yet available, like the purpose of presentation? So can I just clarify? So which means the app is not functionable yet. Is that what you're saying? And can you still get your call to action? Can it be still get people to download? Yeah. So yes, but I would think that maybe a better call to action to make it more real is that you can get people to start subscribing to your whatever visit channel. And how do people start to subscribe is maybe they can give their email address to you. So that could be one way. Okay, another question. Maybe I missed something in the modules participant guide, but could you clarify what are the examples of the expected end result of this? Is the solution only in the form of campaign through application, games, website making? No. So to answer to your question, Dini, no. So there is no fixed solution or rather how your solution should look like. It really depends on what is the problem that you want to solve and what are the ideas that you have generated. So we talk about application game websites because these are some of the examples that have came out earlier. So we're using it as an example during our discussion. But no, you're not limited to this as part of your solution.
The only parameter is because this is a digital skills program that the solution incorporates some element of the digital solution. Okay? And it doesn't have to be a website or an app or AI or a video game. It can also be digital storytelling or digital marketing. That is what your solution is about.
Okay, do we have more questions? If not, do we want to do a group photo?
Oh yes. Oh,